Okay, welcome back to the Sea Purple Pod, episode 11. Good to be here. I'm feeling good. You know the vibes. I'm filming this again in person, like live, so I'm going to be posting the video on YouTube. Different setup. Put a little more time and effort into this setup. So if you guys like the other one better, let me know. But this one I'm like sitting down at a table, a little bit better, more official, you know. Plus, I'm not standing. I also tried to, make this curtain look less wrinkled, because it was pretty wrinkled last time, and that's my bad. As you know, funds are not there here, and so we just do our best, because that's all you can ask for. But it's good to be back. Crazy weeks. I feel like every week in 2020 is crazier. I'm like, dang, I got so much to talk about on the podcast. But I got my notes right here. So last time I teased that I'd probably have a guest on this podcast. That's going to be next week, but it's going to be incredible, so don't worry about it. Also, kind of tensions running higher and higher for this new election or the next election in November. Things are heating up, bringing out the worst in American politics. We love it. We're going to talk about mail-in voting a little bit again today. We're talking about stimulus bill and the Republican Democratic ones, and if they got passed. And then we're also going to talk about the Beirut explosion that happened in Lebanon a little bit. So that's kind of the main outline of what's going to be happening today. I'm feeling good. I hope you're feeling good. I'm excited. I like this new format. I like that we're filming this. So I'm excited. So let's just get this going. Okay, you know how we start off every pod. It's always a good start, I feel like. It sets us up for success every episode. That's why we're the number one rated podcast in the world. One of my interns actually told us that. So I'll show you the facts later on that one. But I heard it from him, so don't worry about it. Anyway, that was stupid. Let's move on. President Trump's tweets. There's always an abundance of them. He's always tweeting a lot. He's always tweeting relevant things to what he's doing, what the government's doing. And so we always start with that on the podcast. It always gives good context to what happened this week, why people maybe have disliked President Trump this week, people may love President Trump this week. So it's always educational, funny, controversial. That's what I always say. We go. I said in the intro that things are getting kind of heated in the election. I think President Trump's worried, and I think Joe Biden's taking advantage. And that's just natural. That's what politics is. So Joe Biden, or President Trump, has nicknames for everyone, right? We've talked about this. It's like my favorite thing to talk about on the podcast. Who comes up with these nicknames? Like his interns? Is it President Trump? Is it Barron, his son, that's 15, or I don't know how old he is, 15 maybe? Fact check me. Who comes up with these because they're childish, but they're genius and they stick? And he calls them in like his marketing materials. Like I get President Trump's campaign texts to my phone. Sleepy Joe says it. Crazy Nancy Pelosi. Crazy Bernie. Corrupt Obama. Whatever it may be. He's got it. He says it. That's how he is. So Sleepy Joe Biden is how he starts off this tweet. Classic. Sleepy Joe Biden. By the way, if President Trump had a nickname for me, what do you think it would be? Anyone that can give me a good one, I'll send like a sticker or something. Because I don't know. Would it just be like that purple kid? That kid that doesn't have allegiance to the blue or the red? Is it the kid that wants to dismantle the two-party system, you know? You know? Something. Pacifist Beecher? We'll take that. That's probably what something like it'd be. Or like lame beach. Whatever. Let me know. I want a nickname. I want him to tweet about me. That'd be legendary. Okay. My bad. Bad start. Sleepy Joe Biden just agreed with the radical left Democrats. And now I'm reading that and I'm like, well, of course he's a Democrat. And then I'm like, oh, okay. You're probably just saying that to point out that he's with the radical left Democrats. Radical left is kind of the insult that he's making. That's like his nickname for the Democrats is you're radical and you're too left. So Sleepy Joe Biden just agreed with the radical left Democrats to raise taxes by $3 trillion. And again, something I need to point out that I've seen that he does. President Trump capitalizes random letters in his tweets that don't need to be capitalized, that aren't like proper nouns or pronouns, proper nouns. Why am I even attacking his grammar when I don't even know what I'm talking about? Classic. Anyway, I'm not even going to try, but I'll explain what I mean. So, like, radical left Democrats, all capitalized, which I get. That's, like, the name for the party that he's given them. To raise taxes, capital T, by $3 trillion, all capitalized, $3 trillion. So maybe it's just for emphasis. I don't know. I'll keep going, though. Everyone will pay. Will kill your stocks, 401ks, and the economy. Economy, all caps. Stocks were capitalized as well. Just the S, though. And the economy, all caps. Big crash, all caps. Hashtag MAGA, all caps. So that's just kind of like the language he uses. I think that's just what attracts. Like any news headlines with exclamation points and capitalizations and clear anger or bias in them, that's what gets people to click on them, right? So I'm going to use that for all my YouTube clickbait titles starting now. But I think it's just to attract and to appeal and to see that he's mad and that this is serious and you pay attention to this, right? Taxes, you see taxes in a tweet. Oh, $3 trillion in a tweet. Biden, $3 trillion taxes. Don't want that. Big crash in the economy. What? Right? I think that's totally the strategy he's going for. So also, I don't know what he really means, where he got $3 trillion from. I don't know if that Joe Biden recently came out with something. I haven't seen anything. I don't know if they just looked at his tax plan and then President Trump's team did some quick math and found that number. President Trump loves to refer to this document that Joe Biden signed with Bernie Sanders about like topics and defunding the police and things like that. And so I don't know if he saw that and that came from it. So I don't really know exactly what he's talking about. But either way, he's using a common political tactic, fear. I built this incredible economy. If it wasn't for China, which ruined our economy, which has kind of been his go-to, which is just politics, like I always say, it's American politics. He's putting the blame on China for the economy disaster. But before it, right, the economy was doing well. Like if you looked at the stocks, jobs, credit to President Trump, the economy was doing well. Of course, that's a very relative term because like unemployment was down, the stock market was up, which are good things, but you don't really know the internals, right? But in general, what most people look at for economic good stuff, it was doing fine. And that's been his biggest play, and that's what he kind of ran on. Is like, I'm a businessman, I can run it like a business, I know what success is, I'm a millionaire, da-da-da, and so I'll make America like that. So that's what President Trump's doing, classic, it's smart. He's saying, I handled the economy well, Joe Biden won't, your taxes are going to go up, your retirement's going to go up, and the economy is going to crash, and millions of jobs are going to be lost. Smart. All right, next tweet. Now this one, don't even know where it's coming from. Out of left field. I'm confused. It had everyone confused. And I'll give context, of course. So, last podcast, episode 10, we're on episode 11 now. What's up? President Trump, I talked all about Nevada and mail-in voting. They passed that they were going to mail-in vote. And how President Trump was so mad, was going to sue them in court. And Republicans actually went and protested at the Nevada State Courthouse or government offices, I don't know exactly where, but they went and protested that it's so unfair and that it's corrupt, right? President Trump has made a big deal about mail-in voting. We're not going to do it. It's corrupt, fraud. It's going to ruin the election. Like, what? He's mad. I talked about that. And then he tweets this. Nevada has zero infrastructure for mail-in voting. It will be a corrupt disaster if not ended by the courts. It will take months or years to figure out. Florida has built a great infrastructure over years with 2 great Republican governors. Florida, send in your ballots. So it threw me for a loop, right? Because he's been so against mail-in voting. And then Nevada signs this thing. He says, I'm suing you. I'm going to block that with my presidential powers that I have. And then says that Florida, like, let's go. I'm all in for mail-in voting. And so there must be something that he knows that we don't know, or there's a strategy to this because he's a smart dude. Like, he knows how to play the game, and his team knows how to play the game. That's what politics is. So I don't know exactly what he's strategizing, to be honest. I'm assuming that Florida is more Republican, and he's had lots of support from them. He loves to like post like the Florida boat parades with all the Trump flags on it. I think he just has confidence that if Florida mails in votes, he'll win Florida. Nevada, which is normally like a flip state, like it could be red or blue, he's not as confident in, so get him out. That's probably shady. It definitely is shady, actually. And I don't know what his plan is. I don't know if he's going to do that with every state, but that's what he's going for. And it's also interesting, like Florida, no offense to Florida out there, but like kind of been like the laughing stock of coronavirus in the U.S. Like everyone's kind of had spikes, but Florida's consistently been like opening up beaches too early, partying on the beaches. Their cases have gone crazy. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll give you insight as soon as I find out. But this mail-in voting is not going to end. I can guarantee that he's going to fight it and talk about it till the election and even after the election. Because if he does not win, he's going to blame it on that. That's what I'm predicting. The political strategist in Beecher from Sea Purple is predicting. Those are President Trump's tweets. I hope they're enjoyable. They always are for me. If you don't follow him on Twitter, follow him. Follow us on Instagram too. I plug him. I plug ourselves. President Trump loves this podcast. He's told me himself. That's a lie, but I always say it just for fun. I wish. Those are the tweets. Let's move on to the main story. Last pod, or maybe two podcasts ago, I always say pod, sorry. Podcasts ago, we talked about, I think it was last podcast. I can't even know anymore. Whatever. A couple podcasts ago, I talk about the two plans that the Republicans and the Democrats have brought to the table that they were going to try to get passed. Both were going to try to get passed before they went on. It's not like vacation, but they're not in session. So Congress goes out of session for like a month at a time. Don't really know why they do it and why they do it for so long. But it complicates things. It always complicates things. Government's going to shut down sometimes because they can't get things done. Whatever. Regardless, it's just the government. That's the bureaucracy of it all. So they both had... I explained the differences of these new coronavirus stimulus bills. They both had their own priorities in both of them, Republicans, Democrats. I explained it pretty in detail. So if you want to know what they were, you can go back and listen to it. But it did not get passed, because that's the state of our country. I mean, we're just political like that. I'm sure the Democrats needed priorities that the Republicans weren't really negotiated on, and vice versa. And so President Trump on Friday, which was the last day of the session, since they didn't get passed, at the end of the day, he signed 4 executive orders. Or it was 4 parts of one executive order. I couldn't really find, but I'm pretty sure it's 4 different executive orders, which we're going to go into detail. The 4 parts, what they do, if they actually do help, and all that. But so Congress can veto. So just like insight, Congress can veto any executive order that the president signs. It rarely happens because the president won't sign like something crazy, but they can veto it with a bill. Normally it's a bill, so they'll write a bill and say this bill vetoes this executive order. The problem with that strategy, but it's the most common and best strategy probably, is that the president can veto a bill. So if they pass a bill to veto an executive order, the president can then veto that bill. But, and here we go, lesson I'm teaching you right now, Congress, if there's a 2/3, I believe it's in the Senate actually, 2/3 majority, which is a good solid majority, they can veto a president's veto, if that makes sense. So then their bill would be passed and it would cancel out the president's executive order. Also, the Supreme Court and even higher courts, to my knowledge, can deem a president's executive order as unconstitutional. So that's kind of the background, little teaching moment. That's what I try to do in the main story. So until September 7th, Congress isn't back in session. And so they really were trying hard to get these things passed, because if not, then Americans are going to suffer for another month, and then even add on to that, it takes a long time sometimes to get things passed. So a month and a half, right? So that's why the executive orders were signed. President Trump, and I think the White House knows, people are in dire need of money, whatever, jobs, unemployment benefits, things like that, student loan debt, all that is like kind of crippling the nation. And so President Trump signs a couple executive orders. Now, unfortunately, for the people out there listening, which are mostly young people, we're not getting any more money payments with this round. Sad, right? Yeah, because President Trump had to do these executive orders, he couldn't just rush it in. Now, President Trump is claiming that the Democrats, it's because of the Democrats that there's no stimulus payments. Now, just be wary of that, because if you're a Republican, you hear that and you want that payment, you're immediately going to get mad at Democrats. That's kind of the geniusness of politics and why it's so toxic, and why we're trying to get rid of that toxicity. Is that a word? Don't know. At See Purple. Because really in anything in the government, if something didn't get passed, it's not really to blame either party. Both parties were either at fault or no parties were really at fault. And I'll explain. So, since this didn't get passed, the Republicans are going to blame the Democrats, and the Democrats are going to blame the Republicans. Now, that could have just been that they were both not strategic and didn't give each other enough time to come out to a deal to sign before they went into recess or not in session, right? Or the Republicans were super defiant and wouldn't make any agreements and changes, and the Democrats were the same, and so they clashed, didn't get passed. So President Trump has to come up with his own executive orders to sign in, right? Which is always, most of the time, not going to be as smooth and not going to be as well thought out as like 100 senators coming together, right? So, like, if you really get mad at the Democrats because a Republican says that they made this happen, or a Republican blames it, or Democrats blame it on the Republicans, like, you're just falling into the system of the divide, and you got to stop that. See Purple, baby. I'm here. So, just know that happens. This happens. Like, America is very complex. There's a lot of demographics, a lot of races, a lot of different jobs, different industries, different jobs and industries and races per city, per different cities like that, per state, per county, right? It's very complex, very confusing. And so because of that, the government is big, and it's a bureaucracy, which means that it takes a long time, and it's not always perfect, and money has to get switched around, and we have to go into more debt, right? It's just a whole bunch of crazy stuff. And I don't even know really much about the government, but I know all that. So, like, be patient. No party wants the constituents of America to die, or the constituents to not have unemployment, or the constituents to not have these burdens on them, right? They want a better America. I truly believe that. Some people that are very anti-government might not. But that's what I believe. All right, I'm just on a soapbox right now. I'm sorry. Let's get on to more on the story. Okay. So President Trump, 4 things that are kind of the main points of these executive orders: unemployment and the benefits, dealing with evictions and renting and things like that, payroll taxes, and student loans. And so we're going to go into all 4 of those right now. Okay, so unemployment. As I mentioned last podcast, that was a big shtick between the two parties, right? The Republicans wanted very small payments, like $200 when it's normally been $600 from the federal government. $200 payments so that people aren't cush and comfy with the big payments, and they can go out back and get the jobs. Because, like, the world, even though we kind of still suck with Corona, we've had to go back to figure things out. And so companies and businesses and stuff are all opening up very cautiously, right, in most places. And so, but businesses kind of it's forced to go back to normal to an extent. And so jobs are coming back. But if people have no motivation to go get jobs, that's a worry from the Republicans. Always has been, always will be. And then, of course, the Democrats are saying people are suffering. We've never encountered this before. We weren't prepared for this. We're still suffering. Cases are still going up. Well, let's just keep giving them $600 and they'll set it up. Plus, they'll keep buying things and keep businesses intact, right? Common strategies of both. So there was a big argument. I'd mentioned Mitt Romney had this cool idea. Shout out to him, very purple, to make the payments digress over time, right? So it's going to start August at 500, September at 400, da 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 da, and then I think it was 200 for a couple months until like December, and then they were going to create with a new plan. But his idea was like, well, let's just meet in the middle, right? We'll give them lots of money, but they'll still wane off, so they still have that motivation to go get a job. Nice. We like it. This is what happened. President Trump said he would divert up to $44 billion from FEMA's Disaster Relief Fund to cover the unemployment program. So money has to get managed somewhere. And so let's just, I mean, honestly, with 2020, how it's going, there's probably going to be a disaster relief that money is going to be needed. But let's worry about that in like October or September. But whatever. So he had to move money around. Just fine. It's a government thing. So it's going to be $400 a month federally that the federal government's going to pay for. But states actually have to cover 25% of that. That's kind of the clause. So we're going to give $400. States, though, you have to cover $100 of that, 25%. And so we're actually going to give $300 if you guys can put up the $100. Now, the problem with that is that most states are suffering right now and don't have money to do that. In fact, like states have asked for a $500 billion bill to give states more funding to handle this coronavirus thing. So, and the problem with this is that if states can't afford it, then the unemployed people get $0 from the federal government, that the federal government's not going to give the money out. So I get what President Trump and the federal government's trying to do. It's like, okay, we'll go into more debt, but you guys gotta, it's like give and go, right? Like you guys gotta help out a little bit and we'll help out even more. So I get what they're saying, but most states are like, we can't even do that. And if we can't do that, then our people don't get the money. Also, the way that it got passed, it's going to force the states to develop a new system of funding to give out to their constituents of those states, which could take months to develop, is what I read. So, a couple problems with this. Obviously, it's better than nothing, and it's better than not having anything for another month. But it had to happen, and it was probably rushed just because of the circumstances, and so that's what's going to happen. So it'll be interesting to see. I actually just read a headline. I didn't read the article, just to have some clarity. I didn't read the article, but that President Trump would be willing to not have that deal, the 25% deal, but he already signed this, so I don't know what he's talking about. We'll see. 2, evictions. So the CARES Act issued a 120-day eviction moratorium. Don't even know what that word means, but that's what they said. Moratorium means, I'm assuming it just means like it's suspended, right? For renters in federal housing, as well as living in properties with federally backed mortgages. So they didn't have to pay. The renters didn't have to pay, and then I just forgot the name. The landlords didn't have to pay. The federal government was gonna worry about it later, right? We'll got you. We got you covered. So this eviction executive order, basically President Trump is saying the CDC and the HUD, HUD, which means people say HUD, Housing and Urban Development, their job is to identify federal funds, so they have to go find these federal funds out there, I don't know, in like the budget, right, to provide temporary financial assistance to renters and homeowners. So that's their job. So basically, the executive order is saying, I'm setting up these people to go find funds and to go find people that need those funds, and that's their job. And then they also don't know the timeline when this is going to be happening, and so that's going to be up in the air as well. Good principle, though. I think it's a good principle. We'll like with all these, the principles are great, but the execution we're going to have to wait on because we don't know. But like I said, better than nothing. Okay, number 3 is about payroll taxes. So basically, right, if you guys work like me, every paycheck you get, normally your employer will take out like taxes from the federal government, right, that you have to pay. And so then when you have to do taxes, it's already taken out. You don't have to worry about it, and you haven't been spending that money. And normally those go to like Social Security, things like that. So this payroll tax holiday that President Trump just passed is going to defer the due date for those taxes. And so you can you can, instead of it getting taken out, you can take that money right now because you need it more, right? That depends on how much you make that. It's like up to like, like could be like a $500 bonus, right? You can take that money right now and then you don't have to pay it back for a while. So it's not getting rid of it. It's not doing any of this, but it is saying you can take this money now, but you're going to have to still pay it back later. We're just delaying the due date of these taxes later. It's kind of like what happened with the income tax, right? President Trump moved it from April to like June because don't worry about it. You need that money now. You can pay us later. So I think, and it's only for people that are making less than $100,000. Shout out me for not making that much money. That's the one time I'm grateful. But they are still due, like I said. But then like it raises like, well, are companies even going to want to do that, right? Are they even going to want to take it out? And so I'm sure that's going to be a lot of employer to company relations, but it's an interesting thought. If there's anything the government's good at, it's let's delay making these payments. Like when the government takes out debt, they delay it through bonds for like 40 years, right? That I have a video on that on our YouTube. That's just kind of what they do. All right. And then President Trump, though, actually did come out and say that he wants to permanently cut payroll taxes, not like completely, but less and lower them when he's reelected. So kind of like using that as political gain for himself, right? If I am elected again, though, like I'm down to cut these. But that is a power that lies within Congress and not him. So if he really did want to do it, he would have to work through the leaders of Congress to make that happen. Okay, number four is about student loans. Okay, so what I read is that these first three, like the execution, we're going to have to wait on. We're going to see how it plays out. There's not as many details on how it's going to play out or organization. This one, though, I'm pretty confident in. So they are extending the student loan relief for 3 more months till the beginning of December. And then President Trump, in his debriefing and speech that I watched, he said that we'll probably do it again, readjust in December for even longer. But basically, loan payments and interest payments are paused. And so if you can't make your payments, they're paused. And if you do want to make your payments, you don't have interest on them, is my understanding. And so that's awesome. College is a big business in America, huge business in America. And so I think that's really interesting that that's one of the main things. And then the Democrats have come out and said they actually want to extend it for another year. So we'll see on all about all that. I hope that wasn't boring. I always feel like when I talk a lot and educate too much, not educate too much, I'm not even an educator or anything like that, but like teach and have to go through the kind of technicalities. I hope it's not boring. I hope it's very useful. But that's kind of the main story. That's what these executive orders are going to do. I suspect that as soon as Congress gets back in September, more stuff will go through. Democrats wanted like $3 trillion. I don't know how much this was, but I'm assuming it wasn't as much. Provide that temporary relief, and then there will be a bigger stimulus deal when they get back, is my prediction. There you go. So, main story, I hope it helped. But let's go on to the purple vibes, which we love and we want to end with. To end with purple vibes, sometimes it's hard to find the good vibes that are going on just because it's a crazy world. It's 2020, what a trip of a year. But we do have some positives, which I'll talk about, but it kind of starts with some negatives. So if you guys definitely know, but the explosion that happened in Beirut, Lebanon, happened a couple days ago, like 5 or 6 days ago, I believe. 165 people so far have been declared dead, and about 6,000 have been injured or have gone missing. Right? Not a good, positive thing. Not purple vibes. Now, the problem is that it's actually caused some political upheaval within the people. They really don't have confidence or trust that the government's going to help. In fact, there had been no government assistance or respondents since the explosion. The people have gone to clean up the streets. The people have helped with food. They've really been nothing that warrants that the government wants to help. So people are actually calling for a revolution, putting blame on the leaders and the politicians of the country. This was a quote from a man that owned a restaurant that got destroyed. He said, "Even if we want to restore and build, how can we build on moving sand? It's unstable. The whole country is." Right? That's kind of the feelings, which is not good. And already before this explosion, Beirut was pretty economically in a downturn, and it wasn't going well. So kind of a sad story, something that I feel like we need to pay more attention to. Like, even though this is in a place that we don't have necessarily like good correspondence with, kind of that area, it's people that are human beings, same as us. But the French president, his name's Macron. Let me say it French. Macron. I don't know his first. I forgot his first name actually, but it's Macron. He's actually put together a leader task force to not only help in Lebanon, like with the rebuilding and with cleaning up, but actually to help wake up and take action for what's actually going on in that country. So I think that's even more incredible, right? That unfortunately it took a disaster to bring awareness, but now that awareness is there are democratic countries ready to help. And that's really dope. And that's really sweet. And we love that. And cool that France took the initiative to do this. So actually, I think 15 heads of state are kind of on the force, including the United States. President Trump is on it. And part of that is the United States planned, 3 plane loads of relief, food, water, medicine to help, and doctors, even to help the victims of this. So I think that's awesome. If there's anything that brings people together, it's disasters. Coronavirus for like a month brought us together, and then we got divided pretty quickly, which is a bummer. But things like this just bring people together. You think of like Notre Dame or like the Boston Marathon, 9/11, right? These disasters, even though some of them were caused by literal same people on this planet, they bring us together. They help us be better, which I think is great. And I think that's purple, and people can look past their opinions and thoughts. Even though like the United States definitely we have our problems right now, right? We've lost like 40 million jobs. People are suffering. There's a virus that's going all around and it's still infecting people, right? We can take time out to go help another country, which I think is sweet. And that's kind of just it for the purple vibes. What I would end this with is that 2020 is a trip of a year. We're in August. Things are getting crazy. Like, Kobe Bryant died, and we thought that was going to be, like, the worst of it. But that was, like, just the start, And so, literally, because of that, I just keep telling people I love them. Like, if I love them, I always tell them I love them. If I don't love them, I work on loving them. And so, like, 2020 is a trip. You never know what's going to happen. Who's going to get sick? Who's going to pass away? It might be a celebrity, your favorite celebrity or athlete. It could be your grandma or grandpa or your best friend, right? We literally don't know, and I don't expect anything anymore. It's just a weird time to be alive. So don't spend it arguing with people about politics. Spend it like being productive about politics, going out, trying to make change, asking people why they believe things, not arguing, but explaining and having empathy for people. And I think that's how we need to be. And if we're not, then you might have some regrets in such a crazy year that you took the time just to try to belittle or debate or argue. That's my purple vibes. I feel like that was inspiring. I always call it out. I don't know if that's prideful, whatever. Now I'm just ruining that probably moment with me just talking stupidly. But that's what I want you guys to know. Go have fun as much as you can. Go see purple. Go tell someone you love them. And have a good week. We'll see you next week.